Brooks, good to see you again. You know, it was really funny. We're talking about Jimmy John, but not the food. We're talking about the great Brookhaven football player that ended up going to Alabama. And then we were about to talk about Brian Darden. I mean, we were about to go all over the place because we were talking about great Dandy Dozen football players. But the reason I brought you in is hips.
Yep.
You know, we had talked about this before, and I think we discussed that sometimes with your hips, people break their hips late in life, and that sometimes can be a really detrimental thing.
Absolutely.
How do you handle prevention of hurting your hip?
It's all about keeping the strength, you know, keeping that strength up, whether it be exercise that you're doing consistently with walking, running, whatever it is, stair climbing, but also some easier exercises to do, just sit to stands from a chair. But just maintaining that strength in all planes of movement is key for keeping the hip strength up.
You told us that with the wrist and the grip strength, that sometimes that can tell how long someone might actually live or how healthy they are. When it comes to hips, is that another area that you look at when you're looking at, is this person fit right now?
Yes, and there's one good way that we can kind of measure it would be a tug score, a timed up and go, which I test a lot of my elderly patients where they're in the chair, we start the timer, they stand up from the chair, walk 10 feet, come back and sit down. And why I like it is because, one, it checks your gait speed. You know, the slower you walk, the higher chance of falling that you have. But also it incorporates that time of how long does it take you to get up and down from that chair. You know, some people can walk at a good speed and have good balance, but they have to use their arms to roll out and push up. You know, it's just, it takes in the components of strength and walking speed into it.
That was really interesting what you just said there. The slower you walk in your normal pace, the more likely you are to fall.
Yeah, and something, I always like giving something at home for somebody to test. On that tug score that we do, if it takes you more than 14 seconds to stand up from that chair, walk 10 feet, come back and sit down, that indicates a higher risk of falls. Like that 14-second and under is where we're trying to get people.
That's so interesting. All right, do you have anything that you could walk me through right now?
So I think about just some of the exercises we have people do for their hip. You think of the ones just in a straight line movement of like arms across the chest, doing the sit to stands. You know, I'm kind of catering towards the older audience.
I did legs yesterday. This is a tough one.
Yeah, but having that chair behind where you're tapping it. But things that we don't consistently do is lateral movement. You know, whether it be just getting in your hallway and walking sideways down the hall and back, or standing at the counter and doing the kickouts to the side. But working those outside hip muscles are really important. That's for our balance, you know. Another test I like people to do is, can they stand on one leg? One, can they do that? But two, if you stand on that leg and that hip starts to drop, it's a sign that that leg is weak on the outside, that your hip abductors are weak.
It was really interesting. Haley Van Lith, basketball player for TCU, she talked about that one leg is a little bit longer than the other. I don't know if you saw that video.
No, I don't think I've seen it.
And she said that one of her legs is stronger than the other, and it's been really tough for her as a basketball player. And I know that's probably, you're like, wow, how is she playing with that? Is that something that you see regularly that people don't know about, that maybe that they do really have a hindrance in one leg?
I literally had a patient this week that was, it's funny you asked that, a 17-year-old patient that was starting to have some hip and low back pain, and they x-rayed him and saw that he had about that much of a leg length discrepancy. And if it's like a bone issue, they'll typically give a heel lift, and he has a heel lift now, and his walking was already starting to look a little bit better, and now he's starting PT to build that hip strength up.
Is this someone that was an athlete?
Not necessarily. He was in band, and so he's, I say band is, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but I think about the band camp, and he was having trouble in the summer when they were out there on that concrete for 2 weeks. Started having a lot of pain with that, a lot of pain with the marching, where he kind of, his mom noticed him kind of slinging that leg over, started to have a back pain, and then went and checked out, and there was a leg length discrepancy. So it happens. If you have one like that, sometimes just a little insert in the shoe can make a big difference.
And it can affect your whole life. I
Absolutely.
mean, we're talking about, you know, if you're feeling the pain, don't just kind of hang out. It may be worth going and getting checked.
It's worth getting it checked. You never know. We find leg length discrepancies all the time in people, whether it be a muscular imbalance or whether it be a structural thing with one bone being longer than the other.
So hips, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a doctor.
No.
All the way around, right, for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, we got hip flexors on the front, abductors, and the extensors. So
where do you most likely see issues? Front, middle, back?
It depends on age, honestly. With, like, he might be in the clinic right now. Hamstring strain, track athlete. So that's more of like, you think of glute and into that hamstring there. But a lot of my elderly patients will have hip flexor tightness. Thinking about sitting in a chair all day, that hip flexor starts to get short because the leg's in this bent position. So when they go to stand up, that hip flexor's tight, and it puts them into that flexed posture position. So we do a lot of hip flexor stretching.
And I've noticed the hip is in the middle of your body.
Yeah. It's everything, man.
It can affect the things around it.
It is everything. Up the chain, all the way up and down. Have a patient that's having ankle pain, and I think it's coming from hip weakness.